The Spurs take on the Sixers tonight. Can they get a win? And time to check in on the tank.
You are Locked On Spurs, your daily San Antonio Spurs podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Spurs right here on the Locked On NBA Network. I'm your host, Jeff Garcia, Spurs writer for Kens 5 San Antonio. Glad to have you back. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Spurs your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever we get podcasts. Hey, TGIF, everybody. Weekend is finally here. Just get through today and go have some fun this weekend. But what are we talking about today? We're going to be looking at tonight's contest, Spurs-Sixers. I believe this is the last game before the road trip begins. So hopefully the Spurs can snap their losing skid and leave San Antonio on a good note. And we'll catch up with them later down the road when they return after the All-Star break. Also, to trade or not to trade Josh Richardson. He spoke about the possibility of him getting traded recently. We'll dive into that. And then, as you heard a little while ago, we're going to check on the tank right here on Locked On Spurs. And I hear we have the tank commander, or maybe the sergeant of the tank. He is my colleague at Kens 5, Nate Ryan, making his Locked On Spurs debut. And I'm going to be picking on him because he ditched me earlier this week, everybody, because he had a little sickness. Come on. Walk it off, Kate. Walk it off, Nate.
Yeah.
Walk it off.
Yeah. I had about 3 shots of NyQuil the night before, and I woke up in a daze at like 11:30. I was like, something going around the newsroom there. But appreciate you having me on, Jeff.
Don't worry about it, man. Are you feeling better? And all kidding aside, are you all right?
I am. Yeah, I am
right.
feeling a lot better. I've been sleeping really well all week. I've got this herbal tea sort of remedy drink that I've been putting together all week. But sadly, I think one of my co-anchors might be coming down with whatever I did have. So it's just kind of hitting a couple different people. But I think I'm out of the weeds, which is good.
Is it the same herbal drink I saw on Press Row?
That might have been just straight up coffee, what you would see.
Oh, okay.
I've got this mix. It's a little bit of maple syrup, ground ginger, cayenne pepper, and lemon juice in hot water. And I swear by that whenever I get into a bind. So it's been great.
I also hear that also helps with hangovers. So it works universally. You're sick or you got hangovers. It works fine.
I wore both, either one,
Well, thanks for hopping on Locked On Spurs. And let's dive into it. I don't even know why we even bother, but it's on the schedule, Nate. So let's tackle it. Spurs-Sixers tonight at the AT&T, the final home game before the Spurs are gone for quite a while. On the road trip. We kind of know already the outcome is going to be for tonight's contest. But nevertheless, the Spurs did beat them earlier in the season in Philly. Can the Spurs do it again, Nate?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it. I mean, we already got the win at their place. I'm hoping it'll be a good crowd tonight. Obviously, the last game of the homestand before they hit the road for a month. Though Wednesday night's performance against Sacramento, I mean, if they're making Domantas Sabonis look like the best big in the league. I mean, he went for 34 and 11. You got Joel Embiid coming in. It's not getting any easier, so that doesn't make me feel any better about stopping the interior presence. And Philadelphia's playing some of the best basketball in the league right now. And obviously, we don't know about right now, at least, the health conditions of Jeremy Sohan, Trey Jones, who's going to bring the ball up the floor for San Antonio. It could be a couple guys playing out of position, but on paper, despite us somehow getting the win, which feels like a couple years ago already right now in the opening weeks of the season, Joel Embiid's got to be looking at this matchup and thirsting on it because especially when you look at what Sabonis did Wednesday night and the run that he's on in the MVP race, it's going to be tough down low for San Antonio in this one.
Yeah. Sixers are 33-17. They've won 8 of their last 9 games. So they're a little bit of a hot streak here. So nevertheless, hopefully the Spurs can duplicate what they did out in Philly. Now, you mentioned the injury bug. As of this recording, Nate and I do not have the official Spurs IR list. So keep that in mind. But if they are out, Jones and Sohan, that's going to make for a long night. You mentioned Embiid, and Pirtle. I think I'm going to be looking at that. Embiid is a fan of Jakob. He's gone and said it over and over again that he believes that Proto is one of the most underrated centers in the league. Is that a matchup you're going to be looking at tonight, or is there a different one?
Well, Pirtle's going to have his hands full. Personally, hands full on the defensive end. I don't know if you kind of had this impression as well too, but against the Kings last night, he kind of that was one of his more off kind of games of the year. He was on the bench for kind of long periods there. If I'm Philadelphia, I mean, I'm starting it with him. And the thing about Embiid too, he's not your typical big man like where Pirtle is, as far as Pirtle's an interior guy. He's a rim protector. He's one of the more physical bigs in the league. But the thing about Embiid is that he can beat you inside, but he's also a center who can step you out and knock down a 3-point jump shot. So Pirtle's going to get his cardio in for sure on Friday night. And what he does is he frees up other jump shooters around him. I mean, because you also have to think about, stopping James Harden, stopping PJ Tucker, Tobias Harris, other guys around the wing who can knock down jump shots. But he's going to draw a double because at the level that he's playing right now, he's playing the best basketball of his career, where, San Antonio is going to have to, they're really going to have to get a workout in on Friday night if they're going to stop these guys defensively, especially San Antonio defensively right now is the worst defensive team in the league.
They are. I believe it's almost, or it could be historic. Like the Spurs could have it like the wrong end of history and have one of the worst defenses in the league. So
I saw that too.
For their franchise. It's
not good.
It's not good. Yeah. Now, if you're thinking that the Spurs are at the AT&T Center saying, okay, well, at least there's that, hopefully the Spurs have a somewhat of an edge in tonight's game. Think again, the Sixers have won 7 straight road games heading into tonight's contest. So road or home, it doesn't matter for Philly. Now,
I mean, it's a good chance for San Antonio to go see, one of the best teams in the NBA. I think it'll be a good crowd because, anytime you get one of the top teams, you get a good crowd in. It's a Friday night. Maybe some people brave the weather. They come out. And also it's the last game of the homestand. So hopefully a good crowd and a fun atmosphere.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody, if you can go to the AT&T, go because the Spurs are not going to be playing there for a little over a month. Last chance to see your Spurs. Now, the Sixers, again, it's Embiid, it's Harden, it's all them, and they had a little bit of a rough patch where they were kind of dropping some games, but they seem to be getting back on track and clicking, one of the best teams in the East. Do you think they'll be at the end of it all on the Eastern side of the NBA as far as East Finals? How do you think they would finish?
I think they're going to need to make a move. They're a team that's going to need to, make a trade of some sorts because they're not particularly great on the glass. Outside of Embiid, they're essentially playing, 4 wing players around him, 4 or 5 wing players. I mean, you've got Harden, you've got Maxey, Melton, Harris, and Tucker. So you've essentially got the 0.5, if you will, in Embiid. They're going to need another rim protector, I think, moving forward. It's not like they can go out and, splurge on a guy like Jakob Poeltl because they've made a lot of moves to, get rid of draft picks elsewhere. But I think they will need to shore up that front line a little bit. And they'll probably do that here in the next week.
Spurs come into tonight's contest 14-38. As you all know, 7 games in a row with L's. Yeah, they're racking up the L's, so go Team Tank. We'll talk about that in a while. But there was kind of a bad pattern that was actually that was snapped, I should say, versus the Kings. So heading into the Kings game, Nate, the Spurs were not connecting on their shots. They were actually recording a lower field goal percentage in 12 straight games prior to that Sacramento game. So hopefully the fact that they were at least in it shooting wise versus the Kings can do well for them tonight versus Philly. But, at the end of the day, it's still going to be a tough out for the Spurs. I got them getting another L. Nate, what about you?
I think this is one of those nights here, Jeff. This is purely my opinion. I think this is one of those nights where it could get out of hand by the second half. I mean, they've done a great job. San Antonio has in a lot of games where they'll fall behind, 8, 9, 10 points, and it looks like, their opponent will start to pull away in the third quarter, but San Antonio will make life difficult, come back. We saw it against Boston here at the T. We saw it against Phoenix. But with the way that Philadelphia is structured with Embiid, also given what San Antonio could be missing. They might not
Mm-hmm.
have a primary ball handler tomorrow night. I think this is a night where, Philadelphia could run it up and we could see a 20-plus point game, because San Antonio obviously has played really hard and they've played really close in a lot of sort of consecutive games here. But I think fatigue, as well as the opponent just being too good, catching San Antonio at this time, I think we could be looking at a 20-point Sixers victory, which is, again, it's no reason to go into panic mode for San Antonio. You've seen these on the schedule once every. We saw it against the Raptors early on in the season. We saw it, I think, Monday night. It was when the score got out of hand against Washington.
Mm-hmm.
But in between, San Antonio puts up good efforts against good teams. At this time, I think Philadelphia could run it.
Yeah, exactly. And I've said in the last episode of Locked On Spurs with our colleague Vinny Vincetta, and I'll say it with you, you could pretty much rinse, repeat every game preview. They're going to be competitive for 2 quarters, maybe 2.5 quarters, and then the wheels fall off. Something was going to get in the way, whether it be turnovers, mistakes, errors, shooting. Something will always get experience will always doom them in the end. They could be in it with 2, just behind to score 2 points or up 2 points, and you're thinking this team has a W, and then you blink and you look and it's already out of control. It's that fast. So yeah, I'm with you. I think Philly gets the L. Hey, we're not done talking. When we get back, we're going to look at Josh Richardson's future. The NBA trade deadline is around the corner. He spoke about being in the mix of getting traded. He's been traded before. We're going to ask Nate a big question: to trade or not to trade Josh Richardson. And later on, we're going to check up on the tank. Hey, but before we do that, I want to talk to you about LinkedIn Talent Solutions. As a small business owner or hiring manager, you know that success in 2023 all depends on team members that you surround yourself with. That's why you got to check out LinkedIn Jobs. With LinkedIn Jobs, you can hire qualified candidates more efficiently and by matching open roles with people who have the skills, values, and experiences to help you achieve your goals. LinkedIn Jobs helps you quickly attract qualified candidates to your open jobs with targeting tools. Look, they go beyond the resume data by using insight from your job posts, your company, and their 875 million member profiles to put your post in front of the most qualified candidates. Identify the most qualified candidates on LinkedIn Jobs and connect them fast and for free. LinkedIn Jobs makes it easy to screen and rate applicants based on your job qualifications, all on one platform. Look, it's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hire versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. So go post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. We're back right here on Locked On Spurs with my colleague at Ken's 5. He is Nate Ryan. Follow him on Twitter at Nate Ryan Sports. He's the new guy at Ken's 5. When does that label go away? I always wonder that. When did the new guy label disappear?
I think probably for me, it went away. I think there was a little bit of a grace period, the first 3 months, but I think the new year is when
the new year. Okay.
Hopefully, in my opinion, at least that's the way I treat it. I'm sure most people, people are used to watching a lot of the same guys on TV for the last 25, 30 years now, which is, I'm honored and I'm, very thankful that Ken's trusted me to, take over a mantle that has been held for so long. But I'm treating it myself now. I love it here and it's go time for me. So.
Yeah, you want to follow him on Twitter once again at Nate Ryan Sports. He is the Ken's 5 sports anchor. Let's go to continue our chat about your silver and black and put into focus Josh Richardson. Nate, the trade deadline is right around the corner. It's here. Things are probably going to get hopping very, very soon. And one name we hear a lot is Josh Richardson. The usual reasons. He's a veteran. He's on a rebuilding team. He can help an experienced NBA team that's looking to make a playoff push. We know that. We got all that. But the question then comes, but the Spurs are in a rebuild. And part of a rebuild is building pieces around these young guys to help them get better as they continue their NBA journey. Now, Richardson, he's not old by any means. He's still in his 20s. He's still a young guy. But for the Spurs, he is a veteran. And he is an NBA veteran by definition. So the question now becomes should the Spurs trade Richardson or keep him around to help the young guys develop and push them in the rebuild, because he kind of fits in that timeline. Nate, he's not super old. He kind of fits the modern NBA game. So why not just keep him around, Nate?
Well, for one, I love Josh Richardson. I think he's been great with this organization. His teammates love him. I know Pop is a big fan of him. He's one of the most used guys off the bench, and he constantly refers to him in his press conferences. He's even keeled. He's a good leader for these young guys. Mm-hmm. He's relatable in a sense where, he's in the back end of his 20s, but he's also old enough where he's been around the block plenty of times. For those reasons, I think Josh Richardson is the most likely of the Spurs to be traded, and he should 100% be traded because you're going to get something for him, and he's on an expiring contract. This is a guy who, if I'm an opposing team and I'm looking through the bargain bin of guys who might be available as far as selling teams at the deadline where I don't have to maybe give up a ton for him, if I'm a contending team, this is a guy that I want on my roster. This guy can score. I mean, he can step it out and make 3-point shots. He's a 45% shooter from the field. He can play, the 1 through the 3 position. He's active, and he's a guy, for all those reasons you mentioned, he's helped San Antonio. He can help a lot of these younger playoff teams out there. This guy's 29 years old. He's played over 35 playoff games in his career. I mean, pretty much for the most part of his career, he's only been on good contending teams as a rotational piece. I mean, this probably is the first time that he's been on a team that's been at the bottom of the standings in his career. He's with the Celtics, Sixers, the Mavericks a couple of years back. So if I'm one of the younger teams in the playoff mix, for instance, I thought the Sacramento Kings got a great look at him the other night. He had a fantastic performance off the bench, 19 points, and Sacramento's a team that's got a lot of guys on their roster who haven't been to the playoffs before. They bring in a guy like Josh Richardson. He could, help, sort of soothe things over as they get into the postseason, because there's guys in this league that haven't played in the playoffs before. A team, that has trouble scoring the basketball. I mean, the Miami Heat, who he's played for before in his career. Maybe the Clippers. Maybe you look at, Los Angeles. I mean, Los Angeles, I don't think needs scoring. They need help a lot of other places. But Richardson is a guy who checks a lot of boxes, and especially for San Antonio, they love having him around, but he's on an expiring contract. And is he a guy that you're really going to go out and spend money to extend to keep him around, a guy that comes off the bench when you can get stuff for him right now? I think he's the most likely of the three to be traded, given Jakob Poeltl's, more usage and efficiency, and Doug McDermott, given he's got another year McDermott does on his contract after this.
Right. Yeah, I'll do a little pushback here. I think the Spurs need to rebuild, which we know that. We know that's the plan. We get that. They all but danced around the whole world, tank and rebuild. I understand that. But eventually that has to, in my opinion, that has to stop. Like, eventually you got to be like, okay, what do we have right now that can help us moving forward? And as you mentioned, he's still in his 20s. He's about to exit them, but he's technically right now he's 29, and he's embracing the mentor role. And I think you got to have balance. You got to have the youth, which they have in droves. But when is that veteran presence still going to be there? Is it going to be Jakob? I mean, Jakob, he's a good player, but I don't know the leadership. I think he leads by example. Richardson tends to be a little bit more vocal. I think you need that type of presence moving forward. Pop has even said, and you were there with me at the AT&T when he says, hey, we're looking at this season as evaluating who can still be here with us moving forward. I think Josh Richardson is the perfect quote unquote veteran for a rebuild. Your thoughts?
He is. He's a very good, model player. I'm also looking at it as if I'm looking to mentor younger guys, and if I'm a contending team also, that's a guy I want on my team. And I think he should be probably right now for opposing teams. If I'm from an outside looking in, I would prefer to have Richardson on my team over Poeltl, because Poeltl will cost a lot more, and over McDermott, because McDermott and Richardson probably will cost around the same, but McDermott you're also paying beyond this year. With Richardson, for all those reasons kind of you've talked about, I think he's going to be coveted by other teams. But at the same time, as veteran, that's just sort of the nature of the beast, where you want to maximize and get the most you can out of this team because you're not going to the playoffs this year. Pop said it last night, reemphasizing the future. You want to try and get the most assets you can, because I really don't think that Richardson, if you want to go out, Richardson's going to be a free agent. So if you want to bring him back, I know Jay Rich likes being in San Antonio. You can, front office can broach that conversation with him in the offseason. But I also see, and we can get into more of this as far, I know our next topic, but another reason why I thought Richardson's performance was great on Wednesday, because it also aligned with Malachi Branham's great performance breaking out with a career high on Wednesday. You trade Jay Rich now, then it gives Branham that leash to really step into his confidence and give him those 25 plus minutes a game, play him like a regular starter, and play him those minutes the rest of the way, and let the kid have some rope, see what you have in him. And getting Jay Rich, out of the lineup, it'll be good for him. He can go contend for another playoff team. You'll get maybe, I think, at least 2 second-round picks. Maybe you work out a deal with a team to get a younger player that's, needs a change of scenery, maybe like a James Wiseman or somebody from the Warriors. And, you let Branham sort of take the rope and run with it.
Yeah, you answered my next question. I was going to ask you is what type of return do you think the Spurs will get? So a couple of second rounders, I'd be okay with that. But we kind of know the Spurs pattern in the recent trades. What has it been? Draft picks, and cash. That's pretty much what's been the bulk of it. Money and picks.
But
So
I think Richardson's good enough and should be wanted enough that he can get a little bit more than just cash. I don't think it'll be like that deal with the Celtics earlier in the season. When they, exchange some money. But like, Richardson's valuable. I really do think he is, and I think that's why he should be the most coveted of the guys on the roster.
Yeah, and then you circle back to Pirtle. Yeah, he has a high sticker price on him. The Spurs do deal him. They're gonna want a lot in return. But if you're an NBA team, why not just wait till he hits free agency? Unless you want to win now, unless you're a team that's like on the cusp and you just need that one big man to challenge Giannis or Joker or what have you, Embiid, then you pull the trigger. But if you're just an NBA team that's looking to add him, I would just wait till he's a free agent and then throw money at him, see if the Spurs will match. That's what I would do. Yeah.
And for Pirtle's standpoint, it's, I've seen some people saying maybe 2 first rounders for Pirtle. I would not pay, if I were a contending team, 2 first round picks for Pirtle. But that's, the Spurs, that's what supposedly they've been saying. It's kind of, these trade deadlines are kind of like a standoff, right? With these with the weeks that lead up into it. One team says they want the most, and other teams say they won't pay it. These days, getting down to the deadline is when we're really going to find out about it to see if anybody will budge.
Absolutely. All right. When we get back, we're going to check on the tank. We're going to ask the captain, one of the captains of the tank. At least I think he is. Are you team tank or are you team compete?
No, I'm team, I'm not a fan of tanking. I'm team playing hard. And as far as, in the standings, if you don't, from what I've seen, I'm pleased with the way everything's going. I'm not say sit players and fans favor.
Yeah.
I think they're doing things the right way.
Like, oops, Sohan has dry skin today. He can't play. Oh, well.
No, they're playing the best. The guys that are in the games are playing the best they can. I don't think they're tanking at all.
Yeah, exactly. All right, we're going to get back and check on the progress of the Spurs rebuild. And good news for those that are our team tank. Spurs are sitting very well record-wise. We're going to talk about that and much more right here on Locked On Spurs with my colleague at Ken's 5. He is Nate Ryan. Follow him on Twitter at Nate Ryan Sports. Make sure you do that right now. Hey, I want to talk to you about FanDuel. Look, it's that time of the year, Super Bowl. You might have a Super Bowl party lined up. Well, get yourself FanDuel. It's America's #1 sports book. We're really excited about our new sports betting partner for Locked On because they're the #1 sports book in America, and it's FanDuel. And if you're new to FanDuel, well, that's even better. They have so many great features that make betting on sports fun and easy. Download the FanDuel app right now so you can bet on Super Bowl 57 with a no-sweat first bet. You'll get up to $3,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. FanDuel lets you bet on everything from the money line to point spreads to who will score a touchdown. Look, you got to get it. Why? It's fast. It's easy. It's secure. It's super easy to use. Yeah, you get that app on your cell phone or your mobile device right now. Best of all, you can get paid your winnings instantly. So join FanDuel today at FanDuel.com/locked on to claim your first no sweat first bet on Super Bowl 57. That's FanDuel.com/locked on. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. And we're back right here on Locked On Spurs with my colleague at Ken's Five. He is the sports anchor. He is Nate Ryan. And he clarified, he corrected me. He's not all on Team Tank. He's team do your best, Spurs. And they're doing that, aren't they, Nate?
With what they have, yeah.
Did you ever? I think you were around still. I don't know when you got hired. I can't remember specifically, but there was a interview that Brian Wright did with SiriusXM NBA Radio, and this is when right after they had made the big DeJounte trade,
Right.
And I never seen him dance around the T word so much than that interview. I mean, he just was dancing around it. He was looking at the interviewer saying, things have to be done, to make things happen in the future. He danced around that whole tank word so much. He looked like, like one of those Broadway dancers.
Mm-hmm.
But here we are, Nate, and good news, Team Tank. The Spurs own one of the top 3 worst records in the NBA. Your 14% chance is on your side as we speak. Big question here, Nate. Do you think they will ultimately end up with one of the 3 worst records in the NBA when the season's over?
That's confidently, because the Spurs aren't going out and, trotting out undrafted league minimum guys every night.
Yeah.
The guys that they're playing, and they want to see growth from some of these guys. There's good players that they put on the floor when they're playing their best. Keldon Johnson, I mean, they made an investment in him. He'll be here for the next 4 years. He's a guy who can go out and get you, 25 on a given night. I think, Jeremy Sohan is a guy really coming into his own. I mean, coming off, I think he's scored in double figures in the last 7 games. Now, he's a little nicked up, but we'll see when he gets back. Malachi Branham is a dude. If he takes a little bit of a step forward, we've seen this team is going to push good teams to the brink. They did it with the Celtics. They did it with the Suns. On certain nights, you just kind of never know, because they do. And this is all you can ask with this team right now. They play hard every single night. And because I think at the long term, they want to see the growth from some of these younger players. Sohan, Keldon Johnson, Branham. Those 3 are the guys that I'm anxious to watch the most the next few months, where, they could scratch out a win, every 3rd or 4th game. And if they're playing confident, maybe they, catch a team, that's resting some players on an off night or something like that once we get down to the end of the season. Because when you get down to the end of the year and the playoff situation is relatively figured out, and you've got teams that also know they aren't going to be in the playoffs, then they're going to be maybe sitting some of their guys, and it's tough to get a crystal ball on
You're right.
The ping pong balls for say one, and the records, because on some of these given nights, you never know.
I think they will. I think ultimately they will own one of the 3 worst records in the NBA. You got to wonder, though, Nate, if Devin was healthy right now and didn't have to have that surgery, perhaps they're not on a 7-game win. I think he wins you 2, maybe in the last 7. What do you think?
That's tough to say. I mean, he'd give you, 14, 15 points, but if Vassell is playing, do you see Sohan, playing predominantly point guard against the Phoenix Suns that one night? I don't know with him on the court, Sohan, that things play out that way, because in that game against Phoenix, the best game of Sohan's young career so far, he literally, it was like something we saw at the Rec League YMCA. He was the best player on the court. He was bringing the ball up the floor, and he was essentially, everybody else was clearing out for him, and he was letting, putting like 3-step drops on Chris Paul,
right,
drawing a double and either kicking it to somebody else. And it was fun to watch. But with Vassell on the floor, I think the things are a lot more spread out, a lot more ball movement. And that's another thing you mentioned. I mean, bringing back Devin, he'll certainly help as far as, adding more offense to helping out scoring in a sense, if you will, if somebody does get traded.
Yeah, it's just interesting to see how if the Spurs are on a losing streak right now with Devin, because Devin is a 1-2 punch on both ends of the court. Gives you the defense, gives you the offense, he gives you a lot. Willing to take that last second shot, we saw a couple times this season. But again, I think maybe for Spurs fans, I don't know about you, Nate, and I think for me, I think a quote unquote failed season is if they don't land a top 3 pick. And I think that would hurt more than what the Spurs are going through right now.
It
Nate,
would.
your thoughts?
It would.
Yeah.
I would agree with you there, just because.
Yeah.
You obviously hear about the top 2 guys, Wembanyama and Scoot Henderson,
Right.
1, 2, who are so. You're looking for generational. Everybody in the NBA is looking for a superstar, because you get to the final 4 teams in each conference end of the year. Every team has at least one superstar, and that's what you're looking for in the draft every year. I mean, you can find one, 5 through 10. Maybe you get lucky and hit on one after the 10th pick, but you're looking for a guy who can change your franchise. And with so much hype being put into these top 2 picks, that's what you're hoping for.
Exactly.
Chance, because that's immediately you get Wembanyama or Scoot Henderson, either one of those guys, and immediately I think you enter the conversation as a playoff dark horse for next year. Regardless of that, you're back to the point where you're getting nationally televised games. That's an immediate shot in the arm where people, all right, you're relevant again. I don't care if you win. We just want to watch how one
exactly
shakes out.
Yeah, I mean, look at Wemby right now. They're hyping up his G League games. I've never seen that before. When watching and covering the NBA, where the closest I remember was LeBron James's high school games getting hyped and getting ESPN coverage. But Wemby, I mean, not even Scoot is getting that type of treatment.
And I think even Scoot too, because I think Scoot Henderson again too. I mean, I could even see scenarios where he turns out to be the better pro. I mean, they play completely different positions, and from a Spurs standpoint, if they don't get one and they miss out on Wembanyama, you got to take Wembanyama 1. But as far as positional fit for San Antonio as a point guard with Scoot Henderson, I mean, I think there's more of a need right now at point guard than there is at center. I mean, you take best player available, but for the Spurs position-wise, I think there's more of a need at point guard and a lead guard. But at the same time, we're going to see Scoot Henderson again on a national stage. People are going to be getting back to these same conversations, which is another great reason why Sohan's playing in the Rising Stars game in a couple weeks. This is the first year where G League players will be in the NBA Rising Stars game. You think Scoot Henderson isn't going to use that Rising Stars game playing against current pros to try and show out and prove to everybody why he thinks he's the best player in this draft class? And you don't think other NBA players, particularly a guy, if Jeremy Sohan's not on his team, and Sohan, I've seen a matchup of Sohan guarding Scoot Henderson. That'd be appointment television.
Absolutely. Spurs fans are having daydreams and just dreams in general of seeing Wemby in the uniform or even Scoot. I mean, in my opinion, Nate, it's win-win. If they strike out on number 1, they get number 2. Oh no, not that. You still get Scoot. It's just look, let's be real. The draft doesn't start to really pick 3. That's when it really starts, and then then it'll be fun times after that. But even if I think the worst case scenario, Nate, is the worst they can get is 5, right? That's the worst, no matter what. But then okay, it's fine. So you fall out on number 1 or 2, Nate, and then whatever, they land at 4. We're just making that up. Then it becomes okay. How much longer does the rebuild continue? Because with Wemby or Scoot, you shorten that timeline. I mean, dramatically. If it's Miller, if it's Amen Thompson, or whoever it is, how much longer does the rebuild continue? Then not a knock on those guys. They're probably going to be impact players, but they're not going to be at the level of Wemby or Scoot. Look at the Rockets. How many big top 5 picks they've had, and they're still at the bottom. Or the Pistons with Cade Cunningham, still squandering. Orlando seems to,
which is why the development aspect of the Spurs, I would put the development of the Spurs and the people, the culture that they have in place as far as bringing players up, because it's different than the days of Manu, Tim, Parker,
Right.
because now, I mean, you see this team start to get more open to bringing people in, and they're parading these guys out in the public a lot more. We've noticed there've been a lot more media friendly in recent years, just from everything I've been told. But there's still that developmental culture. I would put the Spurs development, and I think most people in the league would, over a lot of other places. And you look too. I mean, you bring in a top 5 pick, and if you immediately want to shake things up again, Spurs have the most cap space of any team in the league. So
yeah.
And there's guys who are going to be free agents where maybe you look to bring one in. So
Absolutely. And they got exactly. They got a bunch of cash this offseason. They have a war chest of draft picks. Maybe the trend will be bucked where a big name free agent will come to San Antonio outside of LaMarcus Aldridge. So we'll see what happens. Yeah. So there's your check-in on Team Tank. If you are on Team Tank, or maybe just team, whatever happens as Nate is on that camp. Nate, we thank you for hopping on Locked On Spurs, making your debut. We appreciate your time. My friend. By the way, I heard y'all had like a 550 or that 5 on 50 Spurs special. How did that go? How can fans check it out?
Yeah, so we after the Phoenix Suns game, so we air some Spurs games on Ken's 5, and seeing as it is the 50th anniversary of the franchise, we put together a 30-minute special that followed last Saturday night Spurs game, but a ton of great storytelling. We sit down with people in this franchise, from Keldon Johnson to George Gervin, looking back at really cool moments of history. I mean, it's a total trip down memory lane. If you've been living in San Antonio for a long time and you want to get nostalgic, this is definitely a program from you. If you're like me and you just moved to San Antonio maybe within the last year, and the Spurs you've decided are your team and you want to learn more about this history, this is a must watch. It's available in its entirety on the Ken's 5 app, Ken's 5 Plus, which is our streaming platform. And we've got great storytelling from some of our fantastic reporters. Vinny Vanzetta, Matt Houston put together an all-access expose with George Gervin from the days of old. It's really cool.
Absolutely. And you got to make sure you follow Nate on Twitter at Nate Ryan Sports. I'm going to start calling you the El Paso Locomotive now. That's a great nickname for you. Or just the locomotive. That's it.
Oh,
Nate
man.
Locomotive
I
Ryan.
El Paso days in the rear view, man. I'm San Antonio FC now. That's my spot.
Okay. I see now. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, that's what I was all about.
That's right. Well, then another reason to follow Nate, everybody, to urge him to switch out that profile there.
There you
San
go.
Antonio FC. Thanks again thanks for making Locked On Spurs your first listen each and every day. And as mentioned before, we are free and available wherever you get podcasts. Check out Locked On Game to Game NBA. Every highlight, every stat, every number you need. Locked On Game to Game is available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get podcasts. Just like Locked On Spurs, available on the Ken's 5 Plus app, also on Odyssey, YouTube, and many other platforms. So for Nate Locomotive, or should I say FC Ryan, I am Jeff Garcia. We're going to put a lock on this episode of Locked On Spurs.